Chris Blackwell is the founder of Island Records, the wildly innovative, legendary music label now regarded among the most admired of all time. Chris was born in London in 1937. His parents brought him home to Jamaica when he was 6 months old. Chris embraced the Jamaica culture at an early age. His broad interest in music started in 1957 at the clubs of Montego Bay.
What started to happen is I started to spend more time with people playing music. So I'd go to where there were clubs and when there were sort of big sound system sort of events. But the sound systems you could hear from 2 miles away because they were massive. And I loved that. So that was really where I spent my time, and I got more involved in music and just the music world of it. And then through that, individuals who I became friends with.
In 1959, Chris was working as a water ski instructor at the Half Moon Hotel in Montego Bay when he heard a pianist play. His name was Lance Hayward. Chris just knew he had to make a recording.
I'd booked the studio in Kingston, and the band came in. He played the one song, and then the leader, who was blind, he looked up and he said, would you like us to do another song? I said yes. And the moment that I said yes and he started to play, I knew that was it. That's what I wanted to do the rest of my life.
With the signing of Lance Hayward, Island Records was born. Without a studio or an office, Chris signed 3 new acts.
The 3 records, each of them went to number 1 in Jamaica, which was unheard of because at the time, the Jamaican radio would be playing American music or English music, didn't really play Jamaican music. So that suddenly opened up everything for me. It was really from then on that pretty much most of my time was looking for, listening to, spending time with Jamaicans and their music.
In 1962, Chris moved Island Records to London.
What I did in England, I drove around the areas where Jamaicans lived around London. So I'd go to the different record stores, areas, and sell them myself. And, you know, I really believed in it. And I told them, take this amount, you know, and if you don't sell it, I'll take it back. And that kind of thing, which encouraged the people to be supportive. That's how I started to expand somewhat in the record business.
Back in Jamaica, Chris heard a 15-year-old girl with a unique voice. It was Millie Small. The year was 1962, and Chris had his first major hit.
I brought her to England, and I produced a record in England, and it was called My Boy Lollipop. And the record actually was only 1 minute and 58 seconds. And I knew it was going to be a huge hit.
Chris's instincts were right. The record sold 7 million copies worldwide, and 15-year-old Millie became Chris's first worldwide success.
So suddenly, I was in television studios or recording studios or radio studios, and there was the Beatles and the Stones and the Who and everything else like that. So this little girl's hit got me into this game, as it were, of what ended up being an explosion of British music.
With the success of Millie, doors opened up in England for Chris. At a TV performance with Millie in Birmingham, he met the Spencer Davis Group. They became Island Records' first English band.
There was Steve Winwood playing the keyboards and playing guitar. It was everything. So then immediately I said to them, I'd love to record you guys. I just knew, again, I knew Sky was going to be a huge star because his musicianship was incredible. So that's really how things changed for me, for being into the general music business rather than only the Jamaican music business.
Open doors meant a broader music arena, and Chris was now searching for new hits. In 1970, he met Cat Stevens.
I knew Cat Stevens' first record, which was I Love My Dog More Than I Love You, I think was the name of the song. Or maybe I Love My Cat As Much As I Like Me. I can't remember what it was, but it was something like that. And I thought, that was okay. I mean, it was just interesting. But then he did another record, which I saw him on television, and he was dressed in like Buddhist outfit. But the song was called I'm Gonna Get Me a Gun. And I thought, that's crazy. It just makes no sense at all. Anyhow, a few days after that, somebody called me and said how Cat Stevens was interested to meet with you. And I said, I couldn't be less interested on Cat Stevens. And the person rang me again, and rang me again, and rang me again, over 3 or 4 months, until eventually I said, okay. So he turned up, opened up his guitar, sat down, played a song. It was good. Played another song. It was good. But then they played a third song, which was called Father and Son. And that really touched me.
How can I try to explain? 'Cause when I do, he turns away again. It's always been the same old story.
I said to him what I said to you, that I thought what you were doing was a kind of didn't really make much sense. But I love what you've just done now, and I'd love to do something together. So he said, so would I.
I know I have to go.
Back in the early 70s, a turn of events took Chris back to his Jamaican roots.
I knew their music, but I hadn't released any. Somebody again had called me and said, you should meet with them, because they actually had gone to Scandinavia, supposedly to do some work on a movie. And I don't think it really happened. So all they had was their money to get back to England, and they couldn't get back to Jamaica. So they came in, and we talked for a bit, and I mentioned to them that I felt they could really reach a college audience, because the lyrics, which were coming out of not just Bob, but Peter and Bunny, that is something that if they had instead of a Jamaican sound, they had a bit more of like a rock music sound, they would be able to reach a wider audience. They were doing a show in Los Angeles, and during that show, the audience in a corner sang the song, No Woman, No Cry. And I thought, wow, I knew that could open it up. It's a lyric and a music which, has an emotional element to it. It can pull you in, and that's what happened.
No Woman, No Cry was one of the first and most successful live songs ever released. During the 70s, Chris introduced music that defined the era with talents like Roxy Music, Nick Drake, Robert Palmer, Melissa Etheridge, Marianne Faithfull, and Tom Waits. It was also when Chris met the model Grace Jones.
For the first 4 minutes of the record, there was just a drum machine. So I thought, well, what are they doing? I mean, how are you going to do something with it? There's just a drum machine, there's nothing. And just after that, her voice started. And I thought, wow, she's got a fantastic voice.
Nightclub babe.
Incredibly, and then we did 5 albums then.
In 1979, a very special band performed for the first time in London. At that time, they had not attracted much attention. Island Records would change that.
I came for a concert that Bob Marley was doing in South London. Close to there was a little club. So after the Bob Marley show, I went off and there was about 15 people in the club. You know, it was not as if anybody had really gone there to see this band. Because when I heard them, I definitely believed that they would make it. But it wasn't something that I felt initially. But the passion they had, you could see that they were determined. So that's why I signed them. It was always my thing. I was never really telling everybody this is how you got to do it. I didn't really operate in that manner. If they're doing something and they're feeling good about it, then it's my role to listen to it to see if it's something which can reach a wider audience.
The Polar Music Prize 2023 is awarded to Chris Blackwell, founder of Island Records. As a record producer and genuine music lover, Chris Blackwell has been one of the key figures in the development of popular music for half a century. When Island Records was founded in Jamaica in 1959, he began his mission to introduce the world to ska and reggae. In folk, rock, and disco, he has invested in uncompromising artists and helped them to become the best version of themselves, never focusing on sales figures, but on the songs and albums as works of art. Chris Blackwell has expanded the world and abolished border controls between genres.
Hello, my name is Chris Blackwell, and I founded Island Records. I feel very, very honored to be receiving the Polar Music Prize.